Welcome to the latest webinar in our Engineerica Education Keynote series. We're very pleased to be bringing you this complimentary presentation, which is going to be our last keynote of the year. For those of you who are new to us, Engineerica specializes in academic center management systems for higher education. You may be familiar with some of our software applications, which include AccuTrack, Accudemia, and AccuCampus. And I want to give a special welcome to any Engineerica clients joining us today. And for those of you who are not yet clients, I do want to let you know we are offering a complimentary trial of our most popular center management, Accudemia. This is a great time to get on a trial because the spring semester is approaching, and that's typically a really good time to do a trial because it's usually for many folks a little slower than the fall. And it gives you the opportunity to use Accudemia for an entire semester risk-free to see if it makes management of your center and data collection easier. And if you are interested in that, you can send me an email, rachelc@engineerica.com, which I'll also paste into the chat momentarily. So we started this keynote series for our clients and our contacts who wanted to learn more about best practices and trends in higher education. Each month, or most months, we feature a distinguished speaker to talk about hot topics in the academic support field. We are going to be skipping January since we typically hold these earlier in the month, and we know that early January is a busy time for everybody. So we are still finalizing the details of the first webinar for next year. So that'll happen sometime late January, early February, and of course we'll send an announcement when registration opens up for that. So keep your eyes on our email, on your email that we send to you, and of course on our social media accounts such as LinkedIn for an announcement about when we do open up registration. So a quick introduction to myself. I'm Rachel Cook. I'm a client success manager with Engineerica. I was previously a learning center manager for a number of years, so like you all, I'm very passionate about higher education and student success. I also have with me Justin Virosamy. He's one of our technical support specialists. He's here as my backup and also to help with any technical issues that come up on our end, the speaker's end, or yours. And I am pleased to introduce you to this month's speaker. While currently pursuing a D in higher education leadership, Paige Mertz works as the Associate Director of Program Analytics at Sam Houston State University. She's a lifelong learner and researcher at heart with a BA in English from Sam Houston State University and an MS in Public Communication and Technology from Colorado State University. She has a passion for uncovering the narrative behind the numbers. Her current research includes educational economics, student ROI, data analytics, higher education assessment, philosophies of student achievement, and program workforce mapping. And all that said, let's go ahead and hand things over to Paige. I will make you a presenter and you can take it from there. There you go.
Thanks so much, Rachel. Okay, let me make sure I can share my screen here for y'all. Are you guys seeing the slides okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thanks so much for that introduction, Rachel, and thank you all for joining today. I'm really excited to be speaking with you guys. This is a topic I'm pretty passionate about personally and professionally, so it's really exciting. As Rachel said, I'm working at Sam Houston State University right now in Texas, where I'm also attaining my doctorate almost at the proposal stage, so slowly but surely. I'm also originally from Canada, so any fellow Canadians out there, drop your hometowns in the chat. I'd be happy to hear where y'all are from. Today I'm going to talk to you about the power of skills in higher education, how forecasting student skill awareness can be beneficial in your various offices. I'll go over what we mean by skills, how their prominence is influencing higher education stakeholders, and how we can embrace the understanding of skills to best serve students. And I'll have a helpful checklist at the end too to kind of recap everything and maybe some hints to think ahead and move forward. So first I want to go over a little background on the marketization of higher education and how this has led to more of a skills-focused approach. So higher education began with a more descriptive approach to human capital where higher education would describe the economic gains and the impact. So their offerings would then lead to influencing the economy. Nowadays, it's flipped to more of a prescriptive model where the highest economic gain or the jobs that lead to the most profit and the most status are defining what those offerings are in higher education. So this is where we're trying to figure out where the middle ground is using skills-based planning and awareness because student skills help define, bolster, define and bolster both the higher education industry and the economy as a whole. Skills are also way easier to talk about and to understand. So for example, when we're talking about higher education and we're talking about degree plans, we talk about them within those plans, within those degree titles. But if we're outside of higher education, people or employers might ask, well, what are you going to do with, a degree in forensic science or in public communication and technology? Because they don't have the context of the curriculum that you've attained. In a similar story in the labor market, it's kind of a similar story with job titles. I can say that I'm the Associate Director of Program Analytics, but that's very usually followed up with, well, what do you actually do though? What's your job responsibility? So that kind of leads us to our first fun kind of icebreaker poll for this presentation here. I'm curious to know if you have ever experienced this personally, or maybe a student has asked you, what can I do with this degree? Or what have you done with this degree? Or with your job title, what do you actually do with that job title? I'm just curious if anyone who's joining today has come across these conversations before.
Did you want me to launch that poll page?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks, Rachel.
Okay. So we have a poll for this to help us gauge those responses if you're able to fill that out. Or just submit a response rather than fill it out. All right. We're seeing some really interesting trends so far. We'll give it a few more seconds.
Okay.
We have 73%, 75, wow.
Who say that they have experienced that?
No, just of everybody here who's voted.
Oh,
now it's 82, 83. All right, I'll give it another 10 seconds or 5 seconds. We have 86%, which is good. So I'll go ahead and close that, and let me share the responses. So almost hardly anybody said never, which I find very fascinating.
Wow, that's crazy. Usually sometimes you have, a job title that is exactly what your role is, but very often it's easier to describe what you do or what your degree is when you speak in sort of those skills, because a lot of people can understand those a lot better. But yeah, that's very fascinating. I'm glad that I'm not alone.
Yes.
I feel whenever I do talk, have you ever experienced that, Rachel, if someone asks about your job or your degree?
Oh, yeah, no, I remember one time when I thought my title was peer tutor coordinator, and I thought, and it was on my door, and I thought, that's a pretty straightforward job title. You coordinate peer tutors. And I think it was because of like weird space allocation, I had an unusually large office for a lot of my time at that school for somebody who was like in a middle management position. And I like remember this very distinctly, like one teacher, and I've been asked this other times, but this is the moment that stands out the most in my mind, when he looked me right in the eye. He looks around my office and he looks at me and goes, "What do you do?" I'm like, nothing exciting. They just didn't know where else to put me. Anyway, let me, so anybody who's unable to view the screen for whatever reason, I think everyone is, but just for anybody watching in the future, we are seeing responses of 32% say all the time, 61% say sometimes, and 7% say never. And I'm going to go ahead and hand things back over to Paige.
Perfect. Thanks for that breakdown. Yeah, I think it's a lot easier to understand our degrees and our roles, not just for us, but our students too, for them to understand it when we're talking more about the skills that we have and the skills we can market ourselves and offer in the workforce and in education. So when we start speaking, the skills language, and not just degree title, job title, that's when people, educators, employers all understand, and they can find connections and collaborations. So all of these stakeholders have a shared understanding of skills. When you say a job title or a degree title, you might not understand it right away, but they all kind of have an understanding of communication, sales, storytelling, finance, problem solving, goal setting, assessment, etc. These skills are very powerful and they let us know more about who a student or a person is, but yet they're hidden behind job titles and degree titles sometimes. So let's talk a little bit more about identifying those skills or what we mean by them, how they're categorized. So, we have the foundational skills. These are the ones that are required for, entering a job, the requirements for attaining one. And then discipline-specific skills, maybe if you have a bit of education that sets you apart from those foundational skills. And then the distinguishing skills, which really comes from higher attainment of education or maybe years of experience. And within this pyramid, there's different categories of skills like our common soft skills, and here's some examples, our specialized hard skills, software skills, which sometimes also overlap into those hard skills. And then the certifications, which are ones that have recognizable standards that are assigned by industry or educational bodies, like a teaching certificate, a CPA, or pediatric advanced life support certification. So another way to look at a lot of all these skills and dig into them is this helpful QR code here. I can also drop the link in the chat as well. It'll take you to a public skills taxonomy, and it's good to share with your students or your teams. Let me show you into the chat. I dropped in the chat. I'm not sure if you can only see that, Rachel, if everyone can see it, but I'll throw it in there in case the QR code isn't working for some people.
You sent it to organizers and panelists only, so let me go ahead and copy it, and I'll just resend it to everyone.
Thank you.
No problem.
So I'll actually share my screen here. So I followed that link. If y'all want to go ahead and follow it and maybe take a moment, check out some of the skills and dive down in there, and then share an interesting skill that you found in the chat. I'll do the same. So that'll be kind of a discussion point here. You can throw one of the skills you find in the chat. Once you get to the link and you scroll down, here's sort of the broader categories. So, oops, there we go. So let's see. Oops, for some reason I can't. There we go. Okay, let's try environment for me. And then it kind of gives you subcategories. I'm going to choose forestry, and then Silvics. No idea what that is. But once you hone into a very specific skill in this taxonomy, it'll give you not only a definition. So apparently Silvics is a specialized skill of studying and managing forest ecosystems. But the even cooler part down here is showing related skills, and then it'll also give you US job posting data. So companies, employers who are searching for this specific skill, how many postings they put out there, specific job titles associated with that skill, job postings over time, and then even live job postings. So if you're a mentor or work in a career services center, this is a good way to kind of introduce students to exploring not only their skill sets, but maybe skill sets that they're attaining from their degree program, and finding what jobs and employers are connected to those skills that they're learning. Was anyone able to jump in there and find some cool skills? And it's not a comprehensive taxonomy, but it's definitely a good starting point.
Sorry, my dog picked this moment to start barking. Let me let her out of the office, and then I'll read some of the responses we've been getting.
No worries. I know that's a common occurrence for me when I'm working at home. I'm lucky enough to work from home a few days a week, and it always happens during meetings, always.
Yeah. I was thinking she was just gonna nap through this because she was in here, and I was like, oh, okay, I won't kick her out. And then I think we got a package delivery or something. All right. Yeah. I'm just seeing one response so far. Rose says, I was pleased to find AP style book as a skill.
Oh, nice. That's very granular.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, well, we can always come back to that too if people want to explore it. And
yeah, and I just want to remind everybody, if you're arriving late, if you do want to respond to that question, we have the questions box. That's where you'll ask questions and where you can respond to questions as well. So if we do get more responses, I'm seeing, I got lost, but I'll be looking at the site more later. Okay, no worries.
Perfect. No worries. Okay, so because these skills are so much easier to discuss among students, educators, employers, then that's the reason why skills have displaced occupations as a unit of analysis by the job market, and that's how it should be measured. So the job market is being defined down to a granular skill level more oftentimes nowadays. So for example, instead of analyzing a business degree with trends of target occupations like a project manager occupation or a financial analyst occupation, stakeholders are more likely to look for people who have project management skills or looking at skill gaps with financial analysis skills rather than looking at the target occupations. And then they'll look at different degrees that might offer that skill set, not just business degrees. So looking at various graduates with such a skill rather than such a degree title. So how is higher education responding to this? Right now across the US, there's a lot of state pressures and accountability measures for skills-focused decision-making. So for example, I know in Texas, within our 60 by 30 policy, there's marketable skills reporting. So on all of our catalog pages for programs, we have to be transparent with students the type of marketable skills that each program will provide. There's also a push for this idea of micro-credentials or stackable credentials. So as students are attaining their degree program, they can stack on small credentials, certificates along the way so that if they change their major or if they stop out, they're more likely to have a return on investment because they'll have attained, small achievements within their education and not just the overall degree title. And then also career services and academic affairs offices are utilizing labor market data and analytics more often for student mentoring, career center advising, and program development. For example, my office provides a required needs analysis portion for new program development where we provide labor market analytics to show, if there's a competitive need for a certain program in the workforce before it can go through all the committee approvals. So like anything, there's criticisms and benefits. So I'm going to go over some pros and cons of skill-informed and skills awareness, building that in an institution and in your offices, and starting with the criticisms and ending on the good note with benefits. Do we want to pause it off for questions, Rachel, or are we okay right now?
We're okay. I can read. We did get a couple more responses if you want me to read those really quickly.
Oh, sure.
There was happy to see critical pedagogy under higher ed and tacit knowledge and studious, I think would be studiousness or, but yeah, no questions so far.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that taxonomy is really helpful. I'm always surprised at how granular they can go. And there's an even more comprehensive one, I think, if you're a user of the Lightcast data, but even for a public set, it's a pretty cool taxonomy. Okay, so starting with these criticisms, there's this idea of unfulfilled obligation. So if we're just focusing on the granular, only looking at skills, we kind of miss this idea of higher education having a broader obligation to students, parents, and society. So it's something to keep in mind to have a good balance. Then there's also this idea of learning equals earning. So micro-credentials are kind of reorienting higher education from educational purposes to more employment purposes. So this idea of micro-credentials leading to micro-value. Again, just sort of another perspective. If you're only focusing on micro-credentials and not a bigger picture, you're going to only provide students with that micro-value. But then again, you're thinking about, stacking on a bunch of micro-credentials that might lead to a bigger value. So again, it's all perspective. And then final criticism is from a more recent study that stated, which I thought was really interesting, it stated that education is crucial in developing a nation's personality. So if we're reorienting our processes to include skills awareness, micro-credentials, we have to be sure not to lose our identity. So the article speaks of academic identity, where universities are increasingly pressured to prioritize producing commercially oriented professionals rather than public interest professionals. There's, of course, teacher identity, which can also fall into mentors, career advisors, which kind of leads them to being away from autonomous professionals to more service-oriented and business environments. And then last but not least, there's our students, who are being more and more looked at as consumers rather than learners. So it's important to, oh, my lights just turned off. I'm sorry. I have this weird timer on my lights and I don't know why. Maybe it's censored and it'll pop back on. So it's important to adapt with skills taught in higher education and skills sought by employers, as long as we don't lose sight of who we are and what our office's missions are. So with that said, here's 3 really key benefits of building skills awareness with our students and labor market informed skill gaps within our offices. That builds tighter links between higher education and the workplace requirements, so that universities are more responsive to employer demands in the economy, and they're more competitive in the market, and then the students are more likely to have a return on investment after graduation, because they'll understand what their skills are and they'll be taught and be brought up in an academic environment that has helped harness those. Second, this creates more of a cross-disciplinary opportunity for liberal arts and fine arts students. These fields are more relatively responsive to shifts in labor demands, especially with communication, social sciences, and health. Liz Coleman's TED Talk, I won't share it today, but I would really encourage anyone to flag this one, her TED Talk on a call to reinvent the liberal arts. She explains it way more eloquently than I can, but it goes into more detail about how liberal arts students have skill sets that are way more cross industry. So you might have someone who has really strong project management skills and creative ideas of working project management, but they have a degree title that is fine arts. So maybe an employer might overlook that degree and gear more towards a project management degree title, but if you look at skill sets, maybe you'll have more of a creative spin on it if you incorporate liberal arts and fine arts students as well. So this TED Talk is highly encouraged. It's one of my favorites. Lastly, it democratizes access to good jobs for those people who have competencies, but not necessarily maybe formal qualifications for the role. So this focuses on whether a person has the right skills for a particular job, rather than having the right degree, the right job history, the right background. So all really good key benefits that, again, weighing with the criticisms, can lead to a well-informed skills awareness for students and our offices. This leads me to one of my favorite quotes. The purpose of education is to prepare individuals to live lives they have reason to value, and not just in the specifics required of particular jobs. So how do we balance multiple missions here? How do we juggle between beneficial skills awareness while keeping a holistic obligation to students in the community? The key, I think, is that transparency, is to make sure that students understand this balance too, understanding their skill set from their degree and the granularity of it and how to market that. It's important. And then stacking and earning skills or micro-credentials is also beneficial, but the goal is to also make sure they understand the bigger picture that their higher education journey is providing, how these skills fit into a career path for them, and also bring value to their life. So how can institutions respond? So these are kind of overarching ways that institutions can respond, and we'll go into more of a more refined checklist as well, and applicable kind of to-dos, I guess, thinking forward. So first, overall though, institutions are mapping out labor markets for each academic program. They include, target occupations for each program, but they also focus on target skills or marketable skills for each program. The important thing here I've found, since our office does a lot of this mapping, is to have those conversations with faculty or even academic affairs in general. We can always assume target occupations from labor market data, but it's always great to have faculty perspective, because they're more in tune with, the missions of a program, the curriculum, the nuances that set this curriculum at an institution apart from maybe a peer institution. The quantitative data is always great, but that qualitative story from the faculty is really key. And that way too, you can explore different markets. So labor markets might not always be good at showing the cross-disciplinary ways skills can move around, but faculty have a good idea of how their students' creative skill sets can also span across different industries. And then second, analyzing and talking about skill gaps in your strategic planning and with your students. So if students in mentoring centers, career centers, learning centers are more kind of in tune about skills in different programs and those skill gaps in the workforce, then they'll be able to better help and guide their students into marketing themselves better. So for example, here's the skill gaps example. I think this is for Texas, and it's based on target occupations for human resources degrees. So right now, the first one here is skills and communications. So the dark blue line shows 50% of employers are looking for people with communications skill sets in these target occupations, but only 6%, that's the light blue, show that the workforce profiles such as LinkedIn are showing they have this skill. Computer science is also a skill that more employers and human resources is looking for, and it's very small. So this kind of shows where that cross-disciplinary nature comes in from STEM to liberal arts across different industries. And there's a really helpful skills extractor tool that I'm going to end with after our checklist, and that'll help you and your offices guide students into extracting what skills they're showing in their resume versus what skills they can extract from a job title. So we'll end on that cool note there. Lastly, using these skill gaps can help identify opportunities for adapting course curriculum, new programs or tracks, or tailoring your career and tutoring center sessions for students. So I have, I think it's our third poll on here, Rachel, in what ways is your institution focusing on building skills awareness? I'm just curious.
It's the second one, but yep.
Oh, okay, sorry.
And this one, is multiple options, so you can, and that you can choose more than one option if you'd like.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, just curious to see if anyone's experienced this or heard of it. If you guys have started implementing this in your own institution. Maybe there's ways I haven't heard of yet. Mm-hmm.
While that's being responded to, we did have one quick question I thought we might be a good one to bring up right now. Cindy asks, I think I sent that before finished, are HR departments at our institutions lagging behind evaluating candidates by skills as opposed to the old resume education methodology?
So is that a question, are they?
I think that's what the question is, like, are they, I think it's like, are they typically, and Cindy, if you want to clarify, are they typically lagging behind evaluating candidates by skill as opposed to old resume education methodology?
Yeah, I think there's a big gap in its technical communication that I know in Texas at SAM anyways, we're focusing a lot of resume builders and sort of the strategic planning in building your resume in using technical communication skill sets. But yeah, I think if you have a better understanding of the skills needed in the workforce, then you can incorporate those and weave them into your resume more so that HR offices do kind of an easier and more efficient job of looking at those skills rather than, I know sometimes the older way is to bring up the resume, and if it doesn't look pretty, then, it goes into one pile and it goes to the next. So yeah, I think that's probably still an issue in most places, but then again, nowadays, there's a lot of algorithms that are being used to scrape resumes that kind of filter through hundreds of resumes first before they see a person's eyes. But that's a good point for our skills extractor I'll show you at the end. It uses the same algorithms that those sort of HR companies use to scrape resumes. So that'll be helpful, I think, for Cindy.
Okay, and we've gotten some responses to that poll, so let me go ahead and share that. So again, this was multiple options selectable. So not sure was the most popular one, was 62%. Other was 7%, and then the rest were we report marketable skills, 13%. We offer micro credentials and or stackable credentials, 27%, and we use labor market analytics for mentoring, advising, etc., 19%.
Oh, good. That's great to hear that labor market data is being used a lot more. Micro credentials are definitely taking off, I think. Hopefully the checklist we have next year will help maybe integrate more of those into your processes for mentoring student centers. I know that with program development, that's where it started, but it's nice to hear that more folks from these sort of centers are starting to utilize that data as well, because I think that's what's helpful when you turn it into the student-facing centers, because the students have just as much right to accessing that data as academic affairs professionals do. So that's great to hear. It's being more transparent. Okay, so thinking ahead, here's sort of a checklist to go into building more of a labor market informed career center to best guide students, and also a skills informed tutoring mentoring center. So as far as the Career Center go, sort of two questions you can ask is, do Career Center advisors have access to labor market data on in-demand jobs and skills? So our platform that we use at SAM is Lightcast. So that's one of the leading providers right now, and they have multiple softwares, but different platforms that specialize in different things. Like there's alumni analytics that connect to workforce. There's job posting analytics for real-time skill gaps that you can look at. We also use it to map our programs to different occupations, but there's many others out there too. I only put them, it's not a tag, I just put them in there because that's what we specifically use. And then our Career Center advisors aware of the skills or jobs related to different degree programs. So if you were to ask a mentor or a student advisor, if you had a student coming in from forensic science or a BA in English, would they know sort of the target occupations that their degree program would take them, so they would properly be able to give them advice on their educational path, their journey, so that they would have the best return on investment to be prepared for after graduation. So at Sam Houston, we're starting to kind of internally map this while speaking to faculty, so that we have more of a what target occupations and skills are associated with each program, and then what related micro-credentials are there or certificates that are there that we can then help students stack with their degree. But as a good starting point, if you're not internally mapping yet, there's this SIP to SOC crosswalk. If you're not familiar with it, it's a joint effort with the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the National Center of Education Statistics. It matches program codes, which is the CIP code, to occupation codes, which is the SOC code. And I can drop that link in that chat there for you, Rachel, to share with everyone as well.
Okay, let me drop that for everybody. You might not be able to yourself, but I am happy to go ahead and share that.
Thank you. And then I can actually share my screen. That's the link I dropped is just a link to their website, kind of talking a bit about the SIP to SOC crosswalk and how they're mapping programs to occupations. So I'll share kind of their big Excel document that they have that shows those mappings. This a little bit so I can see. So in the downloadable spreadsheet that they have, there's a toggle for SIP to SOC here. So this shows that by the CIP codes, these are all the program categories. So anyone in an agricultural general degree, they're, according to the BLS and the NCES, they're most likely to go into occupations like animal scientists, food scientists, technologists, soil and plant scientists, agricultural technicians, and then post-secondary teachers alike. So this is broken down for every single program code to occupation code. The reason why we do internal mapping and kind of encourage talking with faculty and making sure you uniquely map each program is that not all of these are going to be corresponding to unique curriculum at each institution. So for example, I'll go down to communication, this one here. So our communication studies degree at Sam Houston, it's under this CIP code for speech, communication, and rhetoric. And right now, it includes occupations like disc jockeys, broadcast announcers, media and communications workers. Not all of these are respective to that unique curriculum. It's more about rhetoric, organizational communication, teamwork. Some of these are related, maybe public relations managers, but there were a lot of nuances that were missing. So then the labor market data that we pulled according to the crosswalk was not going to be reflective of the curriculum at Sam Houston. So this is when we had those conversations with faculty, reorganized and remapped what type of SOC codes or occupation codes map to those programs, so that whenever students are looking for you know, a return on investment, what kind of target occupations can I go into, what job titles will my skills translate to, how do I market myself, we'd be able to have a completely uniquely mapped labor market and skills market for those students, depending on the degree program they have. So then skills-informed tutoring, mentoring centers. Questions to ask here: do tutors or mentors know how the skills vary among students from different degree programs? So a good way to know what skills are associated with which programs is looking at those marketable skills on catalog pages, even just some general searching for student workers or advisors on campus, looking at what skills are commonly associated with those degree programs, so that when a liberal arts student or a STEM student comes in, they'll kind of already be aware of skills that are more aligned with that student and maybe how to help them be more cross-disciplinary, or maybe focus more on a career path to help guide them best so they're most successful after graduation. And then lastly, are tutors or mentors aware of the skills goals of a program or a course curriculum? So again, looking at program or catalog pages, do they know the skills that the student should be walking away from? And are those students comfortable marketing themselves with those skills? So any skills listed on a program or catalog web page, that student should also be reflecting those skills in their resumes, making sure they're marketing themselves with those. And if they're not, having those conversations and saying, well, did you catch that goal from, or did you catch those skills from these courses, or maybe they're not being assessed properly. So that's always a good one to ask as well. And I think that's our last poll there, Rachel. The kind of after looking at this checklist, how would you describe your current situation? So just wondering, you know, this is more of a thinking ahead for everyone listening, or maybe you're already thinking about some of this or implementing some of it. Just curious where everyone stands. And if there's any questions, I can take those too while we wait, Rachel.
So we have in answer to the question, after reviewing the checklist, how would you describe your current situation? A, we have a labor market informed career center, that is 13%. B, we have a skills informed tutoring mentor / mentor center, 5%. 20% said C, we have both. And D, 62% said we would like to incorporate more of A and or B.
Good. So all good participation, because either you've already implemented it, which is fantastic. That's great for those of you who are doing one or the other or both, and then great to hear that people are looking to maybe incorporate some of these in future planning.
Yep, and I am seeing some questions come in, and I think in the interest of momentum, I'm flagging those so we can be sure to get to those at the end.
Perfect. Yep, I just got the one last slide for the skills extractor tool, and then definitely happy to take questions. Okay, so here is the skills extractor. Here's the QR code, and then I'll also drop the link as well. You never know with these QR codes. There we go. So the skills extractor, once the link's sent to y'all there, then I'll pull up my screen as well and kind of go through an example. But this is a great tool for not just personal use even, but for students, for your office staff. It helps you kind of look at what skills are being shown in course syllabi, in catalog entries or program pages, good for program or office marketing. And then also great for student resume building and looking at what skills are in job postings, so you can help students compare the skills that are in job postings and the skills that are in resumes to see where there are gaps. And then also don't forget about the skills taxonomy too that we looked at the beginning of the presentation. So if you use that and then also use the skills taxonomy to see different skills and definitions and live job postings associated with those, layering these tools are going to be really helpful there. So let me pull up that skills extractor on my screen here. So I got too many screens. Okay, so this is where the link takes you. So if we scroll down, you can copy and paste any text you'd like in here, or you could try a sample. So the job posting, resume, or a syllabus. So we even drop in program or catalog pages for programs in here, or even Office landing pages, description pages to kind of show what skills we're really marketing to students from the services provided. So let's show an example. So a job posting, copy and paste in here. So similar to the question I answered earlier, I think it was from Cindy, about HR offices using algorithms to scrape skills to kind of sift through resumes. This uses a similar algorithm. So this pulls different skills that are showing within this job posting. So if a student was wanting to write a cover letter or tailor their resume to a certain job posting, they can drop it in the skills extractor and focus on the skills that an employer is looking for. So if they're using, you know, their own eyes or an algorithm, at least they're going to focus on some of the skills that that they're looking for sure. So if we drop in, let's try a resume now. So Jane Smith. So here's all the skills that Jane is showing in her resume. The other cool part here, the cool feature, is related skills. So maybe these skills are ones that are related to some of these in here that also might tie into similar job titles or occupations that are commonly looking for these skills. So this might be a hint, and Jane might be like, oh yeah, I have Salesforce skills, so I'm going to make sure I throw that into my resume as well. And then I believe, similar to the taxonomy, if you click on a certain skill, it'll show its confidence, but then if you click on learn more about this skill, yes, I believe it takes you right back to that taxonomy there. So it tells you what that skill is, so problem solving, and then it also shows top companies looking for problem solving skill sets, the title of job titles, the trend over time for problem solving, and then live job postings as well. So again, a really helpful tool where kind of layering on to that skills taxonomy to help make mentors and advisors a little bit more aware and more aware of those skill gaps, and helping their students market themselves even better for the workforce. So that is everything I have for you guys. I'm definitely happy to take questions or stick around. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and thank you, Rachel, for handling all my polls and mediating all of this. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, not a problem. So we've had some questions come in, and I imagine we'll get more. I do want to make sure everyone's aware we have scheduled this webinar for an hour, and Paige has expressed a willingness to stay longer if we get enough questions. So feel free to stay for questions, but as a reminder, we are going to be sending out the recording, and we are also going to be redirecting you to a poll when you leave if you're able to take that. And if you are interested in a free semester trial of Accudemia, please send me an email. I'm putting that in the chat there. It's rachelc@engineerica.com. So let me go ahead and get started with the questions we have. Rachel asks, what are your thoughts on Credly badging?
Credly badging. Is that a
C-R-E-D-L-Y?
Oh, is it I've heard of badging, like earning badges for credentials, but is Credly a specific software? I don't think I'm familiar with Credly itself. But I have heard of badges being assigned to degree diplomas. You know, after you graduate, you not only have your diploma, but you also have certain badges associated. I'm guessing it's similar.
I'm not sure. Rachel, if you want to provide some more context in the chat, we can circle back to that. In the meantime, Karen says, in our higher education institution, our tutor/mentors advise based on the course itself rather than the skills needed for the industry. So that was a comment there. Justin says, what are some strategies that might be implemented in a learning/tutoring session that might incorporate this skill-focused approach?
Ooh, strategies. I think the initial awareness of a student coming in before the session. So if a mentor or if a tutor in a learning session is aware that they have a student coming in, maybe knowing their major, knowing their the skill goals for that curriculum, you know, doing some research on marketable skills that are reported for that program. Maybe knowing some skill gaps, so maybe skills that major is more highly associated with, just to kind of prepare for what that student might need help most with. And then it kind of guides the tutor or a learning center representative to best guide that student during the session. I think knowing all of that beforehand is probably the best strategy I can provide. So all in preparation for the session. During the session, I mean, just providing access to tools like these, I think are really helpful. Students, I feel, are most receptive when they can then have something to get their hands on. So not only, you know, being prepared and knowing their skills associated with the major, but then also providing the tools for them to use at home and outside the session, I think is most helpful.
All right, and Rachel did clarify in the questions box that Credly is online digital badges that you can award students after they have shown competence within a particular skill, and these can be placed on their LinkedIn or resume. And she included a link, which doesn't look like I can copy from here, but I can certainly include that in the when we send out the recording and in the YouTube link as well.
Yes, thank you, Rachel. So yes, the digital badges, I think that's kind of related to the stackable credentials, micro credentials. I think they're extremely, we've had really good ties of retention with the digital badges, so that if students, you know, are trying to find ways to boost their curriculum through the degree plan, and they want to maybe incorporate a skill that's not in a course they're taking or not offered within their degree plan, they can add on those digital badges. So that kind of bolsters up their resume a little bit, it even bolsters their confidence, I think, from freshman to senior. But, you know, as long as they still are aware of the holistic benefit of their degree plan and they're not just focusing on those digital badges, I think in combination, they can be really helpful. As long as we don't forget about, like I said, the identity, the mission of higher education in general. But I think they're a great tool, and it provides a lot of access to different students as well who might not have access to formal four-year degree education. Adding all those badges I think is going to be really useful in the future.
Okay. And then Angela asks, our mentors are made up of students, faculty, and staff. My question is, should we have the mentor students to learn I believe she meant ask the students to learn their own major classifications?
Oh yeah, I think that's a wonderful idea. So understanding, being more aware of their own major classifications, their skill gaps. I think just them being aware would also help them differentiate or maybe collaborate with similar different students in their own session. So that's a great idea.
Great. And then Sunitha has what I believe will be a quick question. Do we need an account to use Lightcast?
Yes, so it is a license-based software company. Right now, those are all public tools that are offered by Lightcast, like the skills category, the skills taxonomy, and the skills extractor. Those are all free to the public. But if you want more real-time data, a lot more slicing and dicing of labor market data, I'd highly recommend reaching out to them for a free trial. I've always had really good experience with them. They're growing day by day, and they've layered on a lot of higher education data sets. They have the NCS, Clearinghouse, IPEDS data. So yeah, highly encourage them. I've always had really good luck with them.
Awesome. And Liz says, and this might be something to follow up with her on, she says, I teach an FYE class. I am hoping to incorporate these skills extractor into a module. I used to teach an FYE class too. If you have any other resources, I'd love to see them.
Oh yeah, I'd love to follow up with that. I know there's a few different ones from Lightcast, but I'd love to maybe touch base with how maybe Sam Houston's internally mapping program workforce mapping, maybe that might help.
Sure.
Add that into your class too. So love to follow up.
Yeah, I can send, and Liz, I can send Paige your info. And Bonnie asks, do you have any idea? Thank you. I saw that dropped in your email dropped in the questions there. And Bonnie asks, do you have any ideas for how our tutoring center can know what skills to focus on when students don't have majors at a two-year, and she clarified she's at a two-year college.
Oh, interesting. I hadn't thought about that, but that does make a lot of sense, especially even for undeclared, or maybe we have like a BAAS, like applied sciences where they pick multiple minors, so it's not really a clear one defining one. But ooh, that's a good one. Maybe in that case, instead of starting with their degree plan, ask them what their future goals are. So if they have a career path or maybe a job title, or even just an industry in general that they want to be in after graduation, even if they're not sure what their degree plan is going to be, or if they're undeclared, at least that would open up, a slew of skills within that industry or job title that you can then have that conversation with the student and say, okay, so these are the top skills in this industry that you think you want to align yourself with. Which skills do you think you have? Which ones do you think you want to learn more about? And that might help kind of working backwards from where they want to be. And then that might also help them, gauge the type of degree plan they want to build, even, whether it's 1 year to 4 year or digital badging even.
Awesome. That looks like the last of the questions we have so far. I am going to go ahead and just remind everybody, when you do leave, if you're able to take that survey for us, we will be passing that feedback along to Paige as well. And Paige, did you say you would be able to share the slides from the presentation?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And my contact info is on that last slide there too. So
Yeah,
I'm happy to share, happy to follow up.
Yep, and we'll include the links that you shared as well with the recording. We'll send those out and put them in the description for the YouTube video that we put up. That was a great presentation. Thank you so much, Paige. Thank you, everybody who attended, especially those of you who had some great questions. We hope that you all have a really happy holiday season. And again, we are going to be skipping January for our session. It's looking like or at least early January for our next session. It looks like the next one will be sometime in late January or early February. So be on the lookout for that. So we're really, really excited for another year of keynotes, and this was a great note to end 2023 on. And I really, really appreciate everybody and wish you all a great rest of your day. Take care.